Hi, my name is Islan Monastery and I'm with Heal and Be Rich. I want to share with you 5 quotes on being bipolar, having mania, and having money problems. Now, before we go too far into explaining what mania is, I also want to talk about hypomania, depressive states, and mixed states for having bipolar disorder. Now, it's important to differentiate between these different states so that we can really dive deep into the mania. Now, mania feels like you're on top of the world. Along with mania comes many impulsive behaviors like overspending, having risky sex, and behaving in other ways like that. When I had mania, I talked faster than normal and had lots of racing thoughts. Now, with hypomania, it's less severe and it happens for a shorter extent. Now, that's the difference between a bipolar 1 disorder, which is where you have mania, and a bipolar 2 disorder. And that's where you have hypomania. That's the difference between those two diagnoses. Now, for me, depression comes after the whirlwind of mania. And I would feel suicidal, and I felt like I hit rock bottom. I felt incredibly sad and lonely, even though I was married to my college sweetheart and I had my dream job. And finally, there's a mixed state, which is the worst state to be in, which is where you're in both mania and depression. So one moment you're flying high and everything's great and you can do anything, and the next moment you're suicidal and you feel like everything has fallen apart. Now, today I'm going to share quotes related to mania and spending lots of money. Now, this first quote is from Kay Redfield Jamison, and it comes from her book, An Unquiet Mind, a memoir of moods and madness. She writes, "When I am high, I couldn't worry about money if I tried, so I don't. The money will come from somewhere. I am entitled, God will provide. Credit cards are disastrous, personal checks worse. Unfortunately for manics anyway, mania is a natural extension of the economy. What with credit cards and bank accounts, there's little beyond reach. So I bought 12 snakebite kits with a sense of urgency and importance. I bought precious stones, elegant and unnecessary furniture, free watches within an hour of each other, and the Rolex rather than the Timex class. Champagne tastes bubble to the surface are the surface in mania, and totally inappropriate siren-like clothes. During one spree in London, I spent several £100s on books having titles or covers that somehow caught my fancy. Books on the natural history of the mole, 20 sundry penguin books because I thought it would be nice if the penguins could form a colony. Once I think I shoplifted a blouse because I could not wait a minute longer for the woman with molasses feet in front of me in line. Or maybe I just thought about shoplifting, I don't remember. I was totally confused. I imagined must have spent far more than $30,000 during my 2 major manic episodes, and God only knows how much more during my frequent minor manias." Now, the second quote comes from David Lovelace. Scattershot, My Bipolar Family is the name of his book. He writes, "Compared to bipolar's magic, reality seemed a raw deal. It's not just the boredom that makes recovery so difficult. It's the slow dawning pain that comes with sanity, the realization of illness, the humiliating scenes, the blown money and friendships and confidence. Depression seems almost inevitable. The pendulum swings back from transcendence in shards, a bloody, dangerous mess. Crazy high is better than crazy low. So we gamble, dump the pills, and stick it to the control freaks and doctors. They don't understand, we say. They just don't get it. They'll never be artists." Now, this third quote comes from Stanley Victor Pascovich in his book, Return to Fantasyland. Just to let you know, I don't post my books and things on the net in hopes of being rich. The reason is I'm a person with bipolar disorder, and there are a lot of great minds on the famous bipolar list that died penniless. If I do the same, it's no big deal, but having a form of mental illness, I would love to get my name on the bipolar list one day. Preferably while I'm still living, so I can make sure they spelled it right. Now, this next article is from Sarah Freeman, and she wrote this on Business Insider, and it originally came from a credit.com essay. 10 years ago, I was a successful middle-aged professional with substantial savings and investments, an enviable real estate portfolio, and happily on track to my first million. Today, I'm a 51-year-old woman with little set aside for retirement, living paycheck to paycheck, and a very long way from financial independence. Am I just another casualty of the global financial meltdown? No. My financial meltdown was very personal and localized. I called it my manic money meltdown, and it was caused by my bipolar disorder. Bipolar mania provides the perfect crucible for money troubles. Lately, many people have become familiar with the concept of the perfect storm, a convergence of forces or circumstances that work together in the worst of all possible ways in order to magnify the intensity and impact of an already negative event. Undiagnosed and or untreated bipolar mania creates the perfect storm for debt, overspending, ruined credit, and financial chaos. And finally, this last quote was written in an essay by Kristen Olson on Aeon. And she's describing her friend. He bought high-end guitars and displayed them on stands in his living room, poised like a choir ready to sing. He decided his real career opportunity lay in starting a band and opening a recording studio in his apartment. So he started inviting other musicians to join in and left the woodworking equipment to molder in his basement. He called a drummer friend who said he didn't want to drag his drums up the stairs to Hank's apartment to rehearse, so Hank added a $10,000 drum kit to the collection. He displayed a heretofore unnoticed fine eye for clothing and filled his closet with couture. Months later, he called a mutual friend in the middle of the night to come pick him up at jail, where he'd been held after the umpteenth noise complaint from his neighbors. What most stunned our friend was the sight of Hank sauntering out of police headquarters in a kind of exquisite coat and hat the very stylish French banker might wear. The afternoon, he was released from one of many psychiatric hospitals or psych units or detox centers that held him from 1 to 10 days in the 6 months that followed the first phone call. Never long enough for him to stabilize. He bought a fully loaded Toyota Avalon. How did he pay for this stuff? He was on disability leave for a few months, receiving some sort of paycheck and building up debt. When he lost his job, he drained his 401k. When he ran out of cash, he sold some of his new stuff to buy cigarettes and food. I chatsied him for all this spending, but I was a carping Cassandra to his whirligig Bacchus. He was incredulous that none of us understood how wonderful his life was. When he called to regale me with the details of his Pottery Barn purchases, I dutifully began to tell him how deluded this was, but he interrupted me. "Darling, stop worrying. I have plenty of money. I have all the money I need." So these are my top 5 quotes on bipolar mania and what it's like to have mania and money problems. Now, if you like this video, please click subscribe, or if you have other experiences with being bipolar, feel free to submit them in the comments below. Thanks.